what was the impetus to start working in music videos at all? Were there videos you watched when you were a kid that got you interested in making them?
I think the first time I saw a video that made me really react was Flavor in Your Ear remix. Hyper Williams directed it, who ended up becoming my mentor. That was a video I remember like, oh wow, what's this? It hit in a different way. It's just something about it, I don't know, began thinking. But when I went to Much Music, that's not like I saw that video and said, I want to make those. When I went to Much Music and I was an intern at Much Music, that's when I said, oh, these cameras, these lights, this is interesting. Maybe I'll do this.
But was it watching that video that made you, not everyone wants to intern at Much Music.
It's what I tell kids a lot. Just do things you're interested in. Not everything, especially now in the age of TikTok and hustler culture, right? You have people just like, if it doesn't meet my end goal, I'm not going to do it. Just do what you're interested in. So I drew. And I was doing logos, and I had like a little T-shirt thing I printed up, and I was, thought I was going to do comic books. So at that point, I was thinking I was going to be a graphic designer, and I was writing poetry because I hung out with my friends, and they were rappers, and I wrote a rhyme, and then it just kind of flows into this thing. Then I'm on the poetry scene in Toronto, and we get invited to Rap City to do some poetry. And while I'm there, I say, hey, what's up with the internship? Because Big C, shout out Craig Mannix, Big C, he was on the scene.
Architect, incredibly important figure in the development of
completely
Canadian music, of hip-hop music in Canada.
And before he worked at BMG, he was a unit assistant at Much Music. So everyone in the community knew that. We thought he was rich too. Wow, he works at Much Music. He must be rich now. Anyway, we're so dumb. I knew he was there, and I know he moved on to BMG. So I said, what's up with Big C's job? Just as a thing, just another thing to do. So it was no master plan. And then while I was there, I was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It definitely, when you look back at it, you get into the idea that maybe there is an invisible hand guiding you around sometimes.
You knew you wanted to make music videos in some capacity.
Yeah.
And so you liked them, you liked being around them at Much Music.
I like being around them. I liked, I was an artist, right? Drawing, graphic design, then the camera and the lights, it seemed interesting. Loved hip hop. I loved the hip hop culture. Like all this stuff converged in a very great way with music videos.
I want to point out for people who either are younger or older that working with Hype Williams at that era you did was like working with Steven Spielberg at that time. One of the most influential music video directors, creative visions of all time, and will be forever.
He's a pioneer. He's a hip hop pioneer.
How does that happen? Is it just is there a form you fill
out? It's like persistence.
Tell me the story.
Sent a package down of all my art.
Why him? Why did you?
Not only is he one of the greats, he's the first person that people are like, oh, now there's a person from the hip hop culture. Of course, you knew producers, you knew MCs. There are some dancers that we knew. There are DJs that we knew. There are even managers that we knew, right? But this was the first director that we knew, and even had a hip hop name, Hype Williams, right? So he was the only one. There was no other option. And I sent out a package of all this stuff, and had everything in it. The T-shirt, a video that I made while I was at Much Music. It was one of my year-end projects that I did, which is me doing poetry. Put it together, big package of all this stuff, send it to them, calling all the time. Hey, we don't know who you are, blah, blah, blah. Or so first they're like, oh, we haven't looked. Then again, the universe, the invisible hand, puts me in a summer program with Cardinal Official that Cardinal Official is running. And we all go to New York for this. We take a field trip to New York City, right? And we're going through record companies and looking at things and doing all this stuff. So while I'm there, I hit them up like, yo, I'm in New York. Have you all looked? And someone said, oh, we don't know who you are. We don't know what you're talking about. So I got the address and I went to go get my stuff back.
You were like, we haven't looked at it yet. If you're not going to look at this, I'm going to go take it back.
I'm going to bring out, I'm a kid, right?
So you walk in?
I walk in. The only person there is a receptionist, Amir.
Yeah.
I go, well, you're looking at it.
Yeah.
He said, you should wait and meet Chelsea, the producer here. And I waited for Chelsea, showed her, and I told her, I know I'm good enough to work for free.
Yeah.
And again, Chelsea, I've known her I've still just worked with her.
Can I tell you what strikes me about that story is that one thing I think I think you might be glossing over because you don't know how special it is, is that most people who are making films don't reach out to Steven Spielberg.
Right.
Like, I find it interesting that you were like, I want to do this. Maybe there's a world in which you just kind of figure it out on your own, but you were like, there's a guy who's the best and I want to be with him.
Right.
Like that in itself is interesting to me, you know?
Yeah. Oh, completely. I mean, again, when you're young and you're just kind of blazing, you take these leaps and it had something to show. I think that's the important thing. I think there's a part of art. It's supposed to show people what you've done. I mean, I just saw a video where a cat brings all its baby cats, like just had babies, and it walks into the bed with his owner or whatever you want, and brings all the cats. She brings all the cats to show her human. Look at my babies. You know what I'm saying? This is a thing in nature to show things you're proud of.
That's beautiful.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Show your. Someone's watching it. You're watching this.
If I'm going to make something, you're going to watch. You're going to watch this.
You're watching.
What do you learn? I mean, can you crystallize something that you learn? I think if I ask you what do you learn from Hype Williams, that could probably be a whole day here.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of something that you didn't know that you learned from him?
Beyond the technical stuff, the lenses. I mean,
Yeah.
Hype knows everything. He really knows all the departments. He knows color. He knows lights. So to me, learning from him, it was, you hire a bunch of people who know their things. There's no, you know all these things, and you hire people that work with those things with you, right? So that was a major bit. So that's the only thing I knew when it came to directing, right? Then meeting other directors who didn't operate that way, I was like, okay. But then also noticing all the best work that way.
Right.
There's no great director that can't walk over here and have a conversation with the cinematographer and then go talk to the stuff, like there isn't one.
A mastery of all the different parts of
It's
the...
your job. You're supposed to be able to speak this language to a degree to get people to a place. Or they're just floating around and people don't like, it's human nature, right? You have a job. There's supposed to be someone in charge. You want them to be in charge. Don't mean you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You don't want them to do it for you, but you need guidance. You need to be told what is expected of you of the job.
We're an animal. We're a group animal, and a leader is needed. And if we feel like we don't have one, things fall apart, or there's a mutiny until we find the right one. You know what I mean? So there's that. And I think the big one with Hype was I shot my first video. Horrible experience.
What was it?
Tracy Lee featuring Busta Rhymes, and it was awful. And it wasn't my first video, but it was my first budget and people who I'm like,
Yeah.
you're working with people who've all worked as opposed to you and your friends, and it's very cool with your friends. So now you're with a guy who's shot, and this guy works, and intimidated, fucked it all up. Sitting at home thinking, all right, maybe I don't want to do this if I'm not going to be any good. And then Hype's on me. You got to fight that feeling that you suck is the enemy, and you have to fight it.
That feeling that you suck is the enemy, and you have to fight that.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful lesson to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, can we do the? Can we get the vibrate off? Is that possible?
I thought I had the vibrate off. I mean,
it doesn't really bother me. Just
it's on the table. Let's try it on the ground.
Oh, that's good. That's some good sound.
There you go.
Some sound recording options there.
Now the continuity's off. You guys can't cut around.
See, I think like a radio person, and you think you're like a visual person.
Yeah,
that's what just happened there.
You won't be able to move any of those questions to the end, I'm telling you.
How do you feel about that, Mark? You feel good about it?
Yeah,
Mark,
you're stuck. You're stuck with it.
Can you talk to me about Northern Touch?
Oh, wow. There you go.
I want to give some context here, because even as you're making these connections in the U.S., you play a really vital role in shaping the Canadian rap industry. Talk to me about the significance of Northern Touch and what just some memories from it. And what that meant in the moment.
I came from the hip hop community here. Part of the reason why I even got to the States was because I was part of the community here, right? My friends were rappers. We did the talent competitions. I was on the scene. So when I was looking to direct, I was actually coming back here like, hey, I'm working with Hype Williams. Y'all, what's up? Right? And surprisingly, you would think everyone was like, oh, our friend who's working with the biggest director, of course we went. And they're like, nah, there's another hot guy at the moment. They weren't checking for me, but I got Chaclair was my first little thing.
Yeah.
Right. Did another video, shout out Marv Brown, Top Cat Entertainment. Did another one, and then I did that Busta Rhymes, Tracy Lee thing. So I was getting my footing. I think I might have directed a Richter scale for EPMD. So now it's like undeniable. I did an EPMD video. Okay, yeah. X is out here. I was doing things. I was shooting. Might have even done Redman by that. But I was doing all these little things are going on. So it's clear I'm directing. They got this song. They hit me up. Let's do it. And yeah, let's do it. And looking back, it's not a great music video. I mean, we did it with pennies, but it looked like, for Canadians, the record was good. You know what I mean? It wasn't, there's always this kind of substandard thing for a lot of hip hop. A lot of stuff just felt like, this feels, this looks Canadian. This sounds Canadian. We'd have these terms, right?
Yeah, it looked very Canadian. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. Right. But here's this video where the styling and the song and the MCs and everything that's going on and what it looked like. It felt for us like, okay, we can play. We might be okay. We might be able to get on the field.
Yeah.
Right? So for the whole country, it felt like that.
Yeah. I remember being in Newfoundland and that song coming on, and I just remember feeling that exact same way of like, wow, there's something happening. There's something happening somewhere else in this country that's really exciting. In fact, I had a conversation the other day with somebody, and they said, when you were growing up, in Newfoundland, what did you think about Toronto? And I said, here's what I knew about Toronto when I was a kid. I knew about the Hockey Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. I knew about the Cool House because it was on Much Music.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew about Baby Blue Sound Crew.
Wow. Wow.
Because I knew that I had watched the Money Jane video so much and I loved the song so much but I was like, there's something really exciting happening in Canada involving hip hop. You know what I mean? Did you have any idea when Northern Touch came out that this is going to be seen as a bit of a bellwether for Canadian hip hop?
No, I knew it was a thing. The funny thing is, right at that time, again, the universe is strange what you pick up. DMX had Get At Me Dog, which was the exact same sample, right?
Oh, interesting. I don't know that song. I don't know that tune.
Yeah. Get At Me Dog is the same instrumental.
Right.
So there's an interesting moment I mean, look, we're West Indian up here. Let's call it a dub plate,
Yeah.
But and I showed it to Irv Gotti.
Yeah.
Irv Gotti was the man behind DMX.
Yeah, of course.
And I showed him the video. And I remember just him groaning like,
we lost that one.
Well, I mean, look, DMX and Irv, there's no competition.
They did all right.
Yeah, they're fine.
They did okay for themselves. I mean, speaking of, it felt like when I was watching Much Music in the early 2000s, you had every video on it, or every second video was one of your videos for a long time, Speaking of Hype Williams, I didn't know any real music video directors except for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? When I was growing up, I was like, I knew there were music videos that were made, maybe Spike Jonze.
Yeah.
Spike Jonze and you would have been the two directors that I knew about.
Yeah. Back when I was Little X.
Yeah, when you were Little X and you had... Because you had the Get Busy video, right, for Sean Paul, which is the video, for people who haven't seen it, it's I watched it last night to get ready for this. It kind of takes place at this house party in the basement, and then there's a family, the normal family's living upstairs, and they're coming down to complain about the dancing going on in the basement. That was shot here? That was shot in Ontario?
That's a Toronto experience. The basement party, while it's just the whole family has a party. So they're playing music downstairs and upstairs, the mother, father, there's uncles, and there's all just this whole thing is happening. And then people would bang on the furnace. The father would go downstairs, tell them stop banging on the furnace. They'd keep banging on the furnace. He'd just end the party. This is all Toronto slice of life. And I remember what was interesting. Someone telling me, or somehow someone telling the story about them relating that to their sleepovers in the suburbs. Just a bunch of kids in the living room, but wilding out, and their dad coming down and yelling at them. People found that connection, even though, but when I did it, it was very much it was a Toronto, my thinking for Sean Paul was to surround him in the culture all the time. So Give Me the Light was all this dancing, all these kids dancing. There's full big chunks of that video where Sean's not in it. It's just dancing, the culture, right? Then Get Busy, the culture, the dancing, the basement, what it meant to be a West Indian in the North America, and bring it. So that was always the thing for Sean, pushing culture along with him. It wasn't typical pop star. Look at this beautiful person singing. Yeah, you're right.
But it is interesting to take him from Jamaica. And bring him, and for him to have done that in Toronto.
Well, this is another part of why you invest in the arts, right? Yeah. That program that I did with Cardinal Official was a government-funded program. From that program, I found directing. From directing, I went to America, and then I said to these Americans with their American money, we can make this money work better in Toronto.
Right.
This will work better for us in Toronto. This is better in Toronto. I brought a lot of jobs up here. So there's one part, we can make this money work better in Toronto. And then there's another one, I have all these West Indians. So, and remember, Sean Paul launched reggae back again.
Yeah.
It was very quiet, and then there's a reggae explosion.
Yeah.
That's directly connected to the city, directly connected to the culture, these kids, that North American, West Indian mix, and how they danced, how they spoke, it just translated for the world in a really specific kind of way. Like, everyone got it. And without this city, you wouldn't have had that Sean Paul moment. You definitely wouldn't have had that reggae explosion, because that record was old. That wasn't some new record that was destined to become a giant pop hit. That record was on the radio in New York City for a long time. The label was complaining because they were waiting so long for me to free up to shoot it, but they kept the faith. And then when that video hit, Sean Paul.
Yeah, he became massive. I mean, and that even though you were already doing very well at that point, that must have done a lot for you too, that video.
I mean, I was a constantly working director. But what you need to be a constantly working director is little hits, little moments, or big hits. There's always got to be, doing a good video for a big song that keeps you going. So, but that was one for directors where we all looked like, okay, see, this is what a video can do.
I got a couple of dangerous questions for you, and I want to ask one of them right now.
Sure.
I talked to Ron Nelson about this the other day. Whether there was any predicting that this genre that was relatively localized and was doing okay, that was doing well, that this genre from Toronto, like Toronto style hip hop and R&B, would become the biggest music in the entire world, thanks to largely Drake and The Weeknd.
Yeah. Any
idea why? Any idea what changed?
I don't know. I think part of it was my generation. In my generation, it looked impossible. And things didn't look like, again, it sounded Canadian. It looked Canadian. It just nothing looked like it was on the level. Then my generation actually was doing things on the level. We were actually, I'm on the other side of the border working with these major artists. So that Weeknd generation and that Drake generation, the doubt wasn't there. Of course we can do this.
They saw that you were working in the States, Cardi was working in the States. They saw that Toronto music and Canadian music Toronto music and Toronto hip hop and R&B, we should be careful there, was on the level of anything else. So of course it was to them.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Right.
Right. So they knew his work. And on top of it, my generation of hip hop was in this city was the first one to say, no, we're from Toronto. Here's the CN Tower. This is how we talk. This is where we're from. Let me put on this blue. The generation before mine, try and keep it low, and they're all. At the tail end, there's a couple guys from my generation before they really jumped on the train. They'd always talk about being on the train in White Plains. Met her on a train in White Plains. I was on the train in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Right? The hell are you talking about the Bronx for? Right.
Yeah.
So, but that was always kind of this thing. They didn't want to really embrace Canada, and of course the other side, and say it's Canada. What Toronto? The other black people, right? Our generation just embraced it. So we don't care what you think. We don't care if yes, and this is how we talk, and we don't talk like you, and we're not trying to. So wagwan, right? Oh, what? And now this is again part of the culture. So the Drake and The Weeknd and that generation came up where we're from Toronto. It can happen. This is how we talk. What's up? I mean, Akon did an interview. He said, Toronto's running the game.
Yeah.
Maybe not culturally, but on a business side, Toronto's enough for him to say the statement.
What does that feel like?
Never in a million years did I think Toronto would be a powerhouse, be a force in the worldwide music industry. Legitimately. We got our producers, we have our writers, we have our singers, there's Jesse Reyes. Not everyone has to be a Drake Weeknd level. Like, that's mind blowing to have two artists of that level. But have all these other artists occupying
Daniel Caesar, Jesse Reyes,
the Vision, there's all these artists. They're just in the game. This is what's going on. Unbelievable. Never did I think this would happen. And so
I hope you feel some pride.
Yeah. I feel like the grandfather or the uncle or some analogy about being the older guy looking at kids.
But you're not the grandfather,
right?
Because you're in the game with these people.
So I'm the uncle.
Can we talk about Hotline Bling?
Of course.
So I had 1985 on the other day, and he talked to me about how he had some idea that song was going to blow up. Like when he heard it for the first time, because he produced it, right?
Yeah.
He said even when we performed it live, we knew it was going to be really big. But he said when the video came out, everything kind of changed. What's your memory of that?
When we did, I thought, I think the culture is going to love this. I also, as far as hip hop is concerned, as far as this culture that we're in, I think we're making something that the culture is really I think we're going to stir it up. And then it just went crazy. The memes, it was on the news. There was on CNN, did a story about Hotline Bling. Unreal, which is now part of the culture as far as, what is it? Donald Glover's This Is America had that kind of a video, and the right record and the right video can reach really kind of global impact level. Western global impact, let me.
Sure. But Hotline Bling really did. Hotline Bling blew up all over the world. You know?
It's a great moment.
What I'm curious about is part of the success of Hotline Bling, I think, was the memes and the parodies based on it. People making funny GIFs out of your video. You had been in the business for a while at that point. Mm-hmm. What was that experience? Like, obviously it was flattering, but like, is that weird for you that like?
Not weird. No, you're watching it from the outside almost like, oh, geez, another one. It's just crazy. It was the beginning of that kind of internet. Take something and just go crazy with it, add things to it. There's a lightsaber version of Hotline Bling. There's one like he's playing. There's all the
tennis one is my favorite one.
Yeah, the tennis one was hilarious.
Yeah, it's really, really fun.
And the one that all to this day, the one where he's you got your two boxes and there's like, no, I don't want it, and then I want it. The kind of whatever people will add to. He's in the red jacket with the yellow background. Mm-hmm. So you got this kind of evergreen meme from Hotline Bling now. Meme
format.
Yeah.
It doesn't offend you at all. You don't watch it and go like, I'm precious about my art. I don't want people
It's
to.
It's hip hop, man. How dare they? No. It's hip hop, bro. You got to be loose.
Because it's hip hop, you can't take it too seriously.
Bro, especially in this day and age, being too serious, they'll come eat you up. The world will come eat you up for some foolishness.
That's good, man. That feels like a good thing to me.
Of course. And if you're not, have you seen the thing when Prince Charles gives the fake head look to avoid shaking a black man's hand?
No. He gives a fake head look?
So there's all the people lined up.
Yeah.
And he's like, ho, 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 ho. And then there's a black man right here.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh. And then he comes back to the guy like, oh, I just had to look over here. I just happened to miss shaking this guy's hand. But it's clear when he does the head fake.
Yeah.
That he's purposely like, that's not like a fake laugh.
Yeah.
That's a fake look, bro. You had nothing else to look at.
We can see it. We know
all
exactly.
saw it.
We all saw it. We all know exactly what's happening.
The King of England.
Yeah. I haven't seen that.
The King of England. I'll show you later.
Yeah, you should. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
It goes back to the idea that if you're a good-intentioned, good-hearted person, you don't have anything to worry about in some ways,
There's all these colonies, including this one, should be severing those ties.
I think that with the death of the Queen, it has been unmooring, to
that was enough.
Yeah.
We had the Queen. She did her thing. She was around through turbulent times. You could speak to a nations that needed that. The world's falling apart, right?
Yeah.
I just was in some place and I heard God Save the King. I go, this doesn't feel right. We're good.
There was something funny about hearing it, wasn't there?
King Charles will not be inspiring anybody to do anything. He will not be. Could you ever in your life see a scenario? I'm good. As a Canadian, as a West Indian, as a colonized person.
Yeah.
I'm good.
We did it. We're good.
We did it. 20th century. Mm-hmm. It is now the 21st century. After that shit, at least you're going to be a shitty head fake to avoid shaking a black man's hand? The King of England?
Let's give me the option to get out. Let's talk about getting the option to get out.
Let's just enough.
Can we talk about the visual art? I remember going down to see your work at Nuit Blanche. Was that intentional in the moment that you had been doing videos, sort of collaborating with other people for a really long time? Was that sort of like, I want to do my own thing?
No,
I want something to be mine.
No. If what it was, what I had been for so long, never ever would that have happened. Especially, let's get this guy who does music videos to go do an art piece at City Hall, the big city, and ended up being really this great moment for the city. I'm not just saying that, again, stepping outside of it. It was this big, cool piece. Alongside Floria Sigmundi, again, two music video directors. Right? She had that piece on the water. and then the death of the son. Really, they just worked really well. But that diversity, and I hate to say the word now because it's been so dirtied up with all the wokeness but yeah, your building should look like the sidewalk. When you walk outside, the office should look like, you come to Canada, you come to Toronto, it's the dream, right? Drake and The Weeknd are the changed world culture, changed music world, changed everything. All their friends were running around the city. All these young creative people, and birds of a feather flock together. That same group of great creativity, it's all around you. But because you're not racist, you just, it's just not right for this. Or if you even came, they never even got into the structure for you to make a decision about them, right? So these stale creative industries up here could have had this influx of great talent, but because this closed-mindedness, because this subtle thing where you're not acknowledging your little biases, right? You miss that opportunity to have those people in your structure, making things hot and fun and mixing it up and having a different point of view. I will say that the entertainment industry, after George Floyd, really did look around and say, yeah, I think we got to change.
Yeah, you noticed that? You noticed the...
completely.
Yeah.
I mean, these are real conversations. Like, we got to fix this up. Now they saw it.
Right.
Not enough. It's not enough to have a little diversity in front of the screen. We need... And we'll find a balance. There's always a moment when things are trying to get figured out. But it's essentially that. You live in a big multicultural city or country like Canada, these offices should look like that too.
And it's also good for your bottom, not to be a capitalist here, but it's good for your bottom line.
Yes, that's how you go see Drake's team, The Weeknd's team, look like the city. So it's not just like, oh, it's a bunch of black kids that are just doing this. No.
The most successful artists in the entire world.
Both of them.
Look like Toronto.
Look like the Asian kid and a white guy, and he's Lebanese, and this one's Italian, and this one's East African, and that one's West, and this one's from the West Indies, and Drake himself is having it's this big mix of the city, right? All smashed together, doing amazing work, changing the world. So again, it's not this is the model that works.
I want to ask you about the meditation, which we talked a little bit before we got going. But I'm nervous about asking you about what led to it.
I mean, there's nothing to be nervous about.
Okay, well, because I wanted to ask you about the shooting.
Yeah. Well, the shooting was...
Do you feel comfortable telling me what happened?
Yeah. All I know, it's New Year's, it's my party, right? And I'm on the dance floor, and then you hear a loud, I feel a little something in my side, and I turn around, there's someone on the floor. All right, that was a gunshot, and he's been shot. I feel something, but I'm not really registering it. And then, through the night, I figure it out. A cop actually told me, I said, hey, do you have a first aid kit? I was grazed, and they were like, no, you've been shot, and they start poking the bullet. The bullet was in my side.
You didn't feel anything? You didn't feel...
Again, it felt like someone hit me. Bullet had gone through 2 people.
Bullet had gone through 2 people and ended up...
So some guy shot someone on a dance floor, a packed dance floor at a New Year's party. Shot the guy once. Thank God it was just once. Shot the guy once, went through him, went through the guy behind him, and then hit me in the back. And just a little bit this way or a little bit that way, that could have hit my spine. It'd be a whole other story. Praise the Lord. Right? That it was, I walked away from it. But that was... not what got me meditating. That was what set up the TED Talk, Message to the Man Who Shot Me. Because I'd come across all this while I was doing Mr. Tachyon. I did a show for Vice called Mr. Tachyon, which is the tagline is the tagline is fictional host, factual science. It's like this guy it looked like Daft Punk was doing science. High concept kind of. His father was a scientist, turned himself invisible by mistake, then had him. He was born invisible. He's looking for the cure in all the fringes of science, and he's doing experiments.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So then we did meditation, and we put a guy in a freezer truck. we had an active and a control. So we got a guy who could meditate, put him in a freezer truck, and he meditated and kept his heat up.
Yeah.
And then the other guy we put in the truck, we almost killed this guy. Get him out! But in the studying of that, learning about what meditation does to the brain. When you meditate, your prefrontal cortex gets larger. When you meditate, your amygdala is smaller. So your prefrontal cortex is decision making, executive function. Your amygdala is emotional control, right? And it gets smaller when you meditate. So it's kind of like your gut and your muscles, right? Like we were saying, meditation is brain exercise.
It's like lifting weights for your brain.
Exactly. When you exercise, the things that should get bigger, get bigger. The things that should get smaller, get smaller. Same thing happens in the brain. The prefrontal cortex gets bigger. The gut, the amygdala, gets smaller. Okay, cool. Then I come across something talking about, there's like a thing at livescience.com. Anyway, the criminal brain is different than the normal brain. And they're talking about, these criminals, when they looked at their brain, there's a little difference. Their prefrontal cortex is too small and their amygdala is too big. Well, that's the opposite of what meditation does. And then I start, looking up these things about what meditation does. So this leads to TED Talk. So I'm going to do this TED Talk here because none of these studies, and because there's one about childhood abuse and neglect, children who are abused and neglected, their prefrontal cortex is too small, smaller than the average kid. Their amygdala is larger than the average kid, right? There's all these studies about, about people who are more violent and aggressive. Their prefrontal cortex, too small. Their amygdala, so all this stuff is leading, but nothing ever brought it together. In fact, in the studies on children, they said this is permanent brain damage. Just can't fix it, right? So I did my TED Talk about Message to the Man Who Shot Me. Story structure wins. This is where my skill as a director, my studying of story, all these things that I do, are when applied to this realm, this is where I can now package messages in a way that can reach people. So long as what I'm giving you is something that, a food analogy, something that tastes good, but the presentation will be enough will make you try it. Then the food has to be good. But you'll look at it and say, this looks good. And in that case of the TED Talk, properly structured story.
Yeah.
Felt like when you watch it, like, when I would do it, regular standing ovations, but part of it is I get you.
Yeah.
Right? From the first sentence.
Yeah.
And then presenting that and bringing together these studies and saying, hey, the studies about violence and aggression, look at what's going on with the brain. Prefrontal cortex, too small, amygdala, too big. Look at meditation.
Yeah.
And then showing people this put to practice. The most violent prison in Mexico had a prison riot one year. They killed 44 people in one riot. I mean, that's a high murder rate for Toronto in a year. One time, 44 people dead. They implemented a print meditation program, prisoners, guards, no more extreme violence. One of the most violent middle schools, I believe in San Francisco, or, so one of those something.
Yeah.
I gotta go look this up.
San Diego, San Francisco, something like that. So, yeah.
This neighborhood, there's something like 38 murders in a year in that neighborhood alone. Literally dead bodies on the playground. The kids, of course, in such a traumatizing, violent environment, the kids take that to school with them. They're fighting. That's just all the time. They start a meditation program. Fights go down. Suspensions go down. Attendance goes up. Marks go up. Kids start getting in the honor rolls, accepted to these fancy high schools. Their worst behaving students become their best behaved students. Their highest achievers, the ones that were totally like, this kid's, everything changes just through meditation. So the TED Talk lays this all out. And after I did the TED Talk, I didn't intend to start an organization. But I walked off the stage, and again, the presentation was good and the food tasted good. Everyone's, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? And that's when my friend Donnell Adams, he and I we started Operation Prefrontal Cortex.
What strikes me about this is that when you get shot, some people would wallow in that, and rightfully so. They would just kind of try and move on with their lives. I think it's interesting. I think it's admirable. And I think it's interesting that you get shot and you go, how can I fix the environment that led to this happening?
Yeah. I mean, look, right away, when I first got shot, I did interviews. I blamed the music. This music talking about violence and guns, this must be getting in people's heads.
Really?
Yeah. I thought this must be the cause. Well, not so much the cause, but you take a poor neighborhood where violence is already happening, you add the music, this must be, to a degree.
Yeah.
There's something about if you're kind of programming yourself that way. But then, again, learning about the brain, trauma, violence, neglect, stress, what this all changes the brain.
But that takes a tremendous amount of compassion to have gone through something that physically and emotionally hurt you, and to try and be like, how can I fix how can I fix the environment so that this doesn't happen?
I get it. I mean, sure. You know what I mean? It's again, the invisible hand is moving things around. It wasn't something, but when it was unfolding, and it's an issue in my community, right? The violence is serious. So, like, I mean, not even my community, this city, there is no safe place. You know, there are bystanders getting shot on Blue Jays Way in front of the Bisha Hotel. You saw that video?
I sure did see that,
little boy
Yeah.
barely missed a bullet hitting him.
I did see that. Yeah.
Right? I mean, for everybody needs to look around. And on a bigger level, these are our kids. We really have to move past, well, that's poor kids, you know, in the ghetto. They're all our kids. They're all our kids.
I think it's beautiful that you've tried to take something that has, you know, you've tried to help find a solution that is a non-conventional one. And I can tell you, you and I were talking with this before we turned the microphones on. Meditation has completely transformed my life. It has made my career better. It has made my personal lives better. It has made all of my relationships better. It has made going through the world easier. Yep. It has made me calmer. It has made me, when I am emotional, more focused in my emotions. It has changed everything for the better. And I have spent time going, I wish everyone could just do this.
It is, I'll say these things. Now we have this platform. Meditation needs to be in our school system, top to bottom, all the way through. It needs to be, they need this mental exercise. It needs to happen. Again, not just for the kids that are coming from traumatic homes or in traumatic environments, but even for the kid that comes from it doesn't just fix the trauma and then you're done. No, then it goes in, once you get past repair, you get into all these amazing benefits. We change a generation, and we know this. And I mean this when I say this.
It's important to say.
For us to know what meditation does in a school environment and for us not to implement it is neglect. It's negligence. It's incompetence. So whoever's listening that's in the education system, you're neglecting your duty. You're incompetent right now. So let me add some positive. But you can change it. You can save this thing. You can walk in the work, have the fight, do the battle, and watch this thing change. Do the experiment. There's only positive benefits that come for this. And then until we're at that point, then if you can do it with your kids, you can do it yourself. This is what we need. But if we get it in the schools, we change a generation. We swing everything around. We need this. Our cops need it. All our first responders need it, but especially police. Stress does what abuse and neglect do. Stress shrinks your prefrontal cortex, enlarges your amygdala. It hardwires in your fight or flight response. It hardwires it in. So when you're like, well, why are these cops acting this way? Yeah, well, see how calm you'd be, you know, after you've seen the car crash where the head rolls off, all these things. It does things to your brain. It makes you react a certain kind of way. Meditation would change. This should be throughout the system. And I do want to put, we had a film in TIFF, Quiet Minds, Silent Streets, that we made with Headspace and premiered at TIFF this year. And when that gets if you have a chance, you see Quiet Minds, Silent Streets, Operation Prefrontal Cortex, and Headspace, watch it. It's about a community in Malton, a bunch of kids in Malton. Their teacher says after one of the largest mass shootings, over 140 rounds shot, and this teenage kid, just waiting for someone to pick him up, happened to be around, stray bullet killed him, devastates the community, hurts all these kids. They're all crushed. Teacher says, well, let's try meditation. And they use the TED Talk to show these kids, hey, this could work for you. They adopt it, and it changes their lives. 15 minutes, like I said, Quiet Minds, Silent Streets. Look out for it if you get a chance to see it, especially when it hits the world.
Well, as soon as we can, we'll post a link about it. Could you talk a little bit about Robin Hood?
Yes, I'd love to talk about Robin Hood.
Tell me a little bit about this show, this upcoming show.
Yes, I've created, produced, and I'm directing, not every episode, a television show for Global TV, Robin Hood. It's a modern retelling of Robin Hood.
Robin with a Y?
Robin with a Y, because it's a girl, because you get it. I get it.
I got it. See, I know. Yeah, that's meditation.
Yeah,
right?
And they live at the corner of Sherwood and Forest.
See?
See?
No flies.
There we go. So, it's John Prince wants to buy the Sherwood Towers and build some monstrosity, and they're fighting back, and, you know, they're rappers, they make the music, it's New Nottingham, and we shot it here. We shot, our studio was in Pickering, the exteriors are in Hamilton. And yeah, it's just exciting to create this show. And it's filled with music, the fashion, the cast is gorgeous. I constantly look at the cast like, God damn, everyone's beautiful. What TV's supposed to be, right? Yeah, it's going to be coming around in 2023 sometime.
I'm looking forward to talking more about it. You want to do a quick lightning round before we go?
Sure.
Most expensive video you ever made?
Thong Song Remix.
Thong Song Remix?
Yes.
Why? What's so expensive about that?
Everyone hated the original Thong Song video because there were no like fat asses. Shout out Joseph Kahn, I love you, but you know what I mean? The people were not happy. So then they paid $1 million plus for the apology, and all the booty they were looking for was there.
Artists you were most nervous about working with?
Nobody really.
Really?
No.
You never had a moment of like, oh my God, I'm going to get to work with this person. I'm never going to.
No, not nervous. Excited. I've worked with Shakira a few months ago. That was fun. That was Shakira shit. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I've never been, I think it was part of that Toronto upbringing. We're very proud of our unstar-struckness.
Most grueling video shoot you were a part of?
Probably Usher, You Got It Bad.
What was hard about that?
It's just, there's a lot, working hard. Usher pulled, like he dislocated his shoulder. I burnt my hand on a light. I twisted my ankle. There's just a lot of injuries involved in making that one for some reason.
Music video that you're most proud of?
I won't say, it's not a music video. It's actually a short film.
Yeah.
If you go to Fela TV, under Fela.tv, under my name, you can see it. It's a short film called 7 Mothers. It's for a fashion brand called Pierre Moss, and it's the founder, Jean is or Kirby. He was, his mother died at a young age, and he was raised by these 7 women. So we tell his story, and it's probably, you know, I show it, and it's not unusual for someone to start crying.
That's what you're most proud of?
Yeah.
Music video that you wish you could take a second crack at? Does that exist?
Yeah. Usher, yeah.
Oh yeah, really?
I would have done all lasers. I would just remove all the club stuff.
I associate it with the club stuff.
I know, but I would have done all lasers.
That's not the answer I was expecting.
No.
I didn't have a video in mind, but I didn't expect that one. Big song, by the way.
You know, I do kind of redo it with Zayn, but you got to find the director's cut. Zayn, Like I Could, director's cut. That's a full laser thing. Director's cut.
It's what you would have done for Yeah.
Yeah, the director's cut.
Okay.
I repeat.
I got you. Artist that you're dying to work with, but you haven't worked with yet?
The Weeknd. I mean, like one of his videos. I worked with him and Rosalia, but I'd love to do one of his things.
Up and coming artist you think everyone needs to look out for?
Up and coming artist that everyone needs to look out for.
Doesn't have to be a musician. Could be a director. Could be.
I can't remember his name. This kid, the director, is doing some amazing work right now. There's just so many damn artists.
Yeah.
Right? But okay, how about this? I'll give you a genre: ballet funk, Brazilian hip hop.
I have seen some of this.
Yes, ballet funk. I think that's it's just the music, the vocal, just it's very different. In fact, the music. So in Robin Hood, because you have the band of merry men and they make music. This time they're rappers, and they whatever. So what I went and got ballet funk beats, and we're using their inflections, and it's based in ballet funk. So it's just this very cool, fresh, new sound.
Finally, favorite Hotline Bling meme?
Favorite Hotline, the Star, because I'm a nerd, the Star Wars one.
Yeah, I forget. The first time you and I talked, you told me what a nerd you were.
Yeah. I'm a super, so yeah, the lightsaber one's hilarious.
Seeing Drake hold the lightsaber and zoom at the same time. I get it. Well, I mean, to talk about the invisible hand that sort of guided you along the way, what I am hearing is that you have also been such a great hand in making this country better, making this country more interesting, making Toronto better, and making Toronto more interesting. And this is such a well-deserved honor, man. And thanks for coming in and talking to me about it.
I mean, thanks for having me, and appreciate all those kind words.